Hello everyone and welcome back to another Star Wars figure review. Today we're going to take a look at some more Black Series 6-inch figures, and in today's review we are going to take a look at a character who, going into Rogue One, a Star Wars story, we all thought was going to be the most badass villain in the film. And that was of course until Darth Vader showed up and in that final scene in the movie absolutely killed it. Literally killed it. What a scene that was. Despite Darth Vader's appearance in that film, however, this particular character remains my favourite from Rogue One, and it is of course none other than this guy, the mastermind, the brains behind the Death Star project for the most part, director Orson Krennic. This is a really cool figure, and like with the Scarif Stormtrooper that I gave you a look at in my previous review, this guy has been very tricky to find, here in the UK at least. So if you do see this guy out in the wild at retail or online, make sure you grab him. He is not hanging around and he's definitely a worthy addition to the collection. So before we take a look at this figure in a little bit more detail, as always, let's take a quick look at the packaging that he comes in. Once again, we do get the standard Black Series packaging design for this figure, with the Black Series logo featured at the top and some very nice artwork of the character down in the bottom corner. On the back of the box you've got a brief description of the character, that artwork once again, and then on the side you've got the number in the series. So that's the packaging for the figure. Now let's take a look at the figure itself. As I mentioned, this guy is really cool. What I really like about this figure is the fact that despite the 3 3/4 inch figure only featuring 5 points of articulation, that was a really good figure, and this one, it takes that figure, the basis of that figure, increases the scale, increases the articulation points, and just makes it a whole lot better. So, as I said, the 3 3/4 inch figure was great on its own merits, but this one is just 10 times better. So it's a highly recommended figure in that respect. In terms of articulation, we'll cover that first and then we'll talk about the details. This guy does feature a ball joint and a hinge at the neck, so you can look up, down and all around. You've got hinges at the shoulders, elbows and wrists, a ball joint at the torso, hinges at the hips, swivels at the thighs, double joints in the knees and double joints in the ankles. I will give you a look at some of these articulation points a little bit better later on in the review, and that's because you can access those posability aspects a lot better when the cape is removed, so we'll talk about that later on. As you can see, the head sculpt on this figure is very nice indeed. He's a little bit tanned for my liking. It almost looks like he's been out in the Scarif sun just a little bit too long, but in terms of the sculpt itself, it's a great likeness to Ben Mendelsohn, who plays Krennic in the movie, and it's just a really nice sculpt, so hats off to Hasbro for that one. As you can see, you've got some great detail in the hair, all those highlights and different shades going on. He does come with his trademark blaster pistol, which is unconventional in its design, definitely a little bit different to what we've seen in previous Star Wars characters. And that blaster can be stored away in a holster that's attached to the belt. As you can see on the uniform itself, you've got those code cylinders and the rank badge on the chest. You've got the traditional Imperial officer belt, as I mentioned, with the holster attached. And then you've got this really nice finish on the rest of the uniform, where you've got this matte colour for the trousers, this really nice shiny gloss black for the boots, and the gloves as well, which look awesome. As I mentioned, the cape can be removed, and the cape is made of a very hard plastic. If you think back to Captain Phasma from the Force Awakens line of 6-inch figures, that's what we're dealing with in terms of the cape. You know, it's a very hard, barely flexible plastic. You know, as I mentioned, it does hinder some of the articulation points in the figure when it's applied, but in terms of overall aesthetic, it looks fantastic. Obviously you get that really nice drape that you wouldn't get with soft goods, and it just looks really cool once it's placed on the figure. As I mentioned, once you've removed the cape, however, you do get access to those articulation points a lot more. One thing I have noticed with this figure is that the shoulder joints are very tight, and the articulation at first is almost non-existent. As you can see, because of this lip that's been created in the sculpt, when you move the arm, that posability is hindered slightly in the shoulder, so at first glance it almost looks like there's barely any movement in the shoulder. But if you give it a little bit of force, then as you can see, the shoulders do move a little bit further up. So depending on what kind of poses you want Krennic to get in, you know, whether you want him to do intergalactic star jumps or, you know, space yoga or something, then, you know, you can do that. It just takes a little bit of persuasion. One other detail that I have only just noticed, actually, with this figure after removing the cape, is that you've got these what appear to be sort of comm links or thermal detonators of some kind attached to the belt. So that's a really nice little attention to detail there. And as you can see at first glance, the uniform is very similar to the other Imperial officers that we've seen in other Star Wars movies. But it is a really, really nice figure, and again, combined with the cape, the blaster, just the overall look, he is absolutely awesome. At the time of filming this review, he's actually the first and only Imperial officer that we've seen in the Black Series 6-inch line, but with not Director Tarkin, Grand Moff Tarkin's reintroduction in Rogue One, and obviously the 40th anniversary of Star Wars A New Hope coming up. Hopefully it's not too long until we see Grand Moff Tarkin himself immortalised in the 6-inch line. That would be a really cool figure to see. So hopefully when Toy Fair rolls around, I think at the time of filming this review, Toy Fair is actually tonight. So it'll be interesting to see what we get revealed there. But yeah, there we go. That's Director Krennic. Again, a tough to find figure. So do make sure you keep your eye on the link in the video description. At the time of filming this review, sadly he is out of stock at staractionfigures.co.uk, but I have no doubt that many more of this figure are on the way, so make sure you keep an eye out for new stock. And again, if you see this guy, grab him. He's awesome. Awesome, awesome. That was a terrible pun. And on that note, I'm going to wrap up this review. So thank you for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'll be back with more reviews very soon. And until then, as always, keep collecting, and may the Force be with you.